Hello and welcome to Timeless with Julie Hartman Live. It is Wednesday, September 11th, 2024. I'm Julie Hartman, and it is great, as always, to be with you. 844-861-5537 is the call-in number, 844-861-5537 if you'd like to call in and chat with me about last night's presidential debate, though, of course, you can always use the live chat, which I have a direct line to right here. Before, of course, we go into last night's debate, I want to recognize that today marks 23 years since 9/11, and we honor today the 2,977 innocent people who died on that day. With that in mind, let us dive in to what we saw last night, the first presidential debate between former President Donald Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris. Now, as some global points before we get into the sound bites here, I want to start off by arguing that Vice President Kamala Harris won that debate. I hate to say it. It doesn't make me happy in any kind of way to say it, but it really does seem clear that she did win. She won because, as we are about to prove, it was a 3-on-1 matchup. The ABC News moderators were despicably skewed, and we are going to look at examples and counterexamples of the different ways that David Muir and his colleague, Lindsay Davis, treated the former president as opposed to Kamala Harris. But I would also like to contend that Kamala Harris won because she was disciplined. She didn't laugh. She went on offense, and that was highly effective for her. Of course, she lied the entire night, and we're going to be proving time and time again how she lied. Of course, she brought up the despicable Charlottesville lie that President Donald Trump somehow fawned over and praised neo-Nazis, which is a complete and total lie. She lied about abortion. She lied about the economy. I mean, so many things, as I say, we will get into. But you have to give her credit that she takes advice. She knows that this laughing thing has not worked out very well for her. And I just want to quickly play something that Sean has compiled to show you that the vice president that we saw last night was radically different from the vice president who we have been seeing in the office and on the campaign trail.
Question to you tonight is what?
Oh, well, that's a debate clip. Let's go to the compilation that Sean has, if we can, of the Vice President Kamala Harris that we know.
I love Venn diagrams, so I just do. So, you know, the 3 circles. And so I asked my team, right? They're fantastic. Out right now he sees the Venn diagram of it all. He sees that there are those circles, and maybe people seem that they're a little different. They live in different parts of the country. They may be different age or different race.
All right, we get it. We know. Circles. We have seen this vice president.
Let's just see where they overlap.
But we did not.
Jules, that goes on for 5 minutes.
By the way,
That's
hello.
A 5-minute montage.
To Sean McConnell in the producer's dungeon. Yes, we don't need a 5-minute montage of that. We all know that this has been the vice president. But last night, she really did seem presidential. Completely lying the whole night. But she walked up. I thought it was so brilliant that in the first 5 seconds of the debate, she walked over to Donald Trump and shook his hand. And that visually was really powerful for her. Donald Trump should have walked right into the middle. He should have anticipated that Kamala Harris was going to do that and looked at her in the eye and shook her hand. There are these amazing compilations of him shaking Kim Jong-un's hand, Putin's hand, and he has this very strong grip and he's, looking down. He should have done that. Visuals really matter. But instead, he kind of trudged onto the stage, rolling his eyes. He seemed tired. He seemed low energy. And she seemed at the beginning nervous, but she was on offense for the entire night. And this is what I would like to contend was the biggest mistake from Donald Trump that night. No doubt it was 3-on-1. No doubt it was despicably skewed. But he should have known that, and he let her talk about him more than he talked about her. What he should have done right from the beginning of the debate, when the first question was about the economy and she didn't even answer the question. The first question was, what are Americans better off now than they were 4 years ago? And then Kamala Harris goes into talking about how she was born in the middle class. She didn't even answer the question. But what Donald Trump should have done right after that answer is he should have said, I just want to start this debate out by setting the scene of what the American people are facing here. There has only been one other time in American history where a former president who has been defeated has run again. That was in the 19th century with Grover Cleveland. He won, then he lost, and then he ran again and won. Donald Trump should have brought that up and said, we are in a unique position where there is only one other time in history where this has happened. You have had 4 years of me, and then you have had 4 years of the Biden-Harris administration. I would like to ask the American people which 4 years you would prefer. That's it. That's all he needs to do. And he needs to go on offense. He was spending so much time defending himself. Go on offense. Say, which economy do you like better? My economy or the Biden-Harris economy? What about our foreign policy situation? Did you like it better under my 4 years where we did not have the botched Afghanistan withdrawal, where Putin did not invade any country? If I were he, I would have paused and said, under President Bush, Putin invaded Georgia. They still occupy about 20% of the country of Georgia. Under President Obama, Putin invaded Crimea and the Donbass region of Ukraine. Under my administration, nothing. And then under President Joe Biden, there's the all-out invasion of Ukraine. Did you like my 4 years better, or did you like this better? What about the Israel war? I facilitated the Abraham Accords, which was one of the greatest Middle East deals since Israel's founding in 1948, which facilitated relations between Israel and its surrounding countries. Did you like that better? Or do you like what we're in now, where there is a full-fledged war in the Middle East, in Gaza, including 101 hostages, which include American hostages? I mean, the record is so clear. Not just the economy, not just with regard to foreign policy. He should have hammered that immigration thing all night long. Did you like it under 4 years with me where we didn't have migrants overrunning our cities? He should have never brought up the dogs and cats thing. Yes, it's true, but the American people will use that as an opportunity to make him look insane. He should have brought up law enforcement. He should have said, do you like my policies with regard to supporting police and prosecuting and jailing criminals better? Or do you like the Democratic Party apparatus where in places like Illinois and New York City, there are no cash bail laws? And where migrants are allowed to commit crimes, as with killing Lake and Riley, as with a new report by the New York Police Department that 75% of crimes in Midtown are committed by migrants. He should have come out swinging with those stats. He should have come out swinging with diversity, equity, and inclusion. He should have said, Vice President Kamala Harris, what do you think matters more, merit or skin color? Vice President Kamala Harris, do you support the genital mutilation of children? Yes or no? If someone is under the age of 18 years old and they want to identify by a different gender, they want to change their name and they want to cut off their breasts or get puberty blockers, do you, Vice President Kamala Harris, support that? Do you support our taxpayer dollars going to the surgeries of these individuals? Yes or no? But he did not do that. Again, I completely recognize that the moderators were totally in the bag of Kamala Harris, but President Donald Trump deserves some culpability here. He needed to come out far more swinging. He was on the defensive for almost the entire night, and it was not a good look. All right, now let's move on to the 3 versus 1.
I agree with you that Trump underperformed.
He did.
I don't think that Kamala won the debate. I don't think anyone won the debate. She won optics.
She won the
over
debate.
People that want joy and like being lied to, but she lied the whole night.
Sean.
And I think nobody won. We all lost.
Well, of course. We all lost.
But I agree with you. Trump really took the bait when she went after crowd size, and he just kind of downward spiraled after that. But I just felt like there were two people spitting their campaign speeches at each other and not really debating anything about issues that matter. In fact, anytime they got onto something substantive, the moderators would jump in and switch to climate change or something
Absolutely.
that doesn't matter.
Look, you're 100% right. And I want to make it clear that I 100% support former President Donald Trump. I am very proud to vote for him this November, and I will do anything that I can to help him win. I also do believe, which we as an American people don't recognize, that this man has been through hell. And of course, that has taken a toll on him. You know, I think as I was watching that debate, I actually had a really interesting thought. He seemed low energy. He seemed over it. And I was looking at him and I thought, what would it mean if we lost him? I don't mean to death, God forbid. I mean, what if he dropped out, or what if he just doesn't want to give as much energy to this anymore? He's almost 80 years old. He has been through the ringer. He has done so much for this country. And at a certain point, I was watching that and I'm like, you know, we, the American people, need to step up here. Donald Trump has done a lot for us. And the vibe that he was kind of giving was like, I'm just over this. And I do want to go through, Sean, I see you want to cut in, so please do.
Well, I think that was one of his strongest lines last night. She was getting on him about the rhetoric and disparaging the American people, and he just fired back and said, rhetoric? You want to talk about rhetoric? I took a bullet to the head.
Yes, he should have amped that up more.
And I think that was his finest moment.
It certainly was. And I do not mean to come out here, you know, totally criticizing the former president. Of course, I am criticizing him. I think he should have come out more swinging. But it's like, you know, when 2 weeks ago, when Hamas executed 6 hostages, the world went, oh my gosh, Israel, oh my gosh, Netanyahu. No. The primary responsibility is on Hamas, obviously. So I want to make it clear that the primary responsibility for last night is on Kamala Harris and her repeated lying, as well as Lindsey Davis and David Muir for their being mouthpieces of the Democratic Party. Full responsibility. That being said, Donald Trump knows this. He knows what he was getting into, and I think he should have been more on offense. And it really isn't that hard. He really just needed to go out and repeat 5 things: economy, wars, immigration, law enforcement, and DEI. Just literally on a rotation spiral. But we saw him and he just looked over it, and we can't blame him. I want to go back just really quickly, and then we're going to dive into clips and remind all of you about what this man has been through and what we as a country have been through. That is, I think, very important context for us to not forget in light of what we were watching last night. In 2015, Donald Trump ran for president. He was inaugurated in January of 2017. That year, from May of 2017 to March of 2019, that was the Mueller investigation, where our taxpayer money was given to a special prosecutor to see if the Trump campaign had a criminal conspiracy by colluding with a foreign adversarial government, Putin's government in Russia, to change the outcome of the 2016 election. In March of 2019, after 2 years of an investigation, the Mueller report concluded that the investigation, quote, did not establish that members of the Trump campaign conspired or coordinated with the Russian government in its election interference activities. That is a huge deal. We also know that because of this whole Russiagate, the FBI used a Hillary Clinton campaign funded dossier. We must not forget this, that the Clinton campaign hired a law firm, Perkins Coie, which hired an international consulting firm, Fusion GPS, which hired a British spy to find information on Trump's alleged collusion with Russia. That was the whole basis of this Russiagate. And not only did we spend 2 years and our taxpayer money chasing this rabbit down a rabbit hole that led to nothing, but also we know that the FBI used this phony dossier to acquire FISA warrants to spy on members of the Trump campaign, including Carter Page. And we just go, oh, whatever. Oh my gosh, that was so awful. They lied. That is a huge assault on our democracy. Then in August of 2017, he's not even in office for 1 year. He already has the Russiagate. And then there was that Charlottesville rally where he made a comment that there were good people on both sides of the statue tearing down debate. I'm reading here the quote. He said, quote, "You had some very fine people on both sides. You had people in that group who were there to protest the taking down of, to them, a very important statue and the renaming of a park. I am not talking about the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists. They should be condemned completely." That set off another firestorm. President Joe Biden argues that the reason he ran for president was because of that alleged endorsement that Donald Trump allegedly made. He did not make it, we just saw of neo-Nazis. And then Kamala Harris repeated it last night. So again, first year he's in office, Russiagate, Charlottesville hoax. Then in December of 2019, we see that he was impeached. He was only the third president in American history to be impeached. And we know that it didn't end there. He was impeached twice. In December of 2019, Donald Trump was impeached for allegedly abusing power and obstructing Congress by calling the Ukrainian president, Volodymyr Zelensky, to inquire about Joe Biden and his son, Hunter Biden's business dealings in Ukraine, including Hunter Biden sitting on the board of Burisma, which is a Ukrainian energy company to which he was elected while his father was vice president and head of American-Ukrainian policy. We now found out, thanks to the Hunter Biden laptop story, that actually there was some very shady business between Hunter Biden and Ukrainian nationals, Romanian nationals, and Chinese nationals, that they got millions of dollars in payouts from these respective groups. Nevertheless, Donald Trump was impeached in December of 2019 for inquiring. Okay, so we have Russiagate, we have the Charlottesville lie, and then we have impeachment number one. Let's go to March of 2020 when we are hit with the pandemic. Remember when it was a conspiracy theory to question if COVID-19 had come from a lab? Remember it was a conspiracy theory to wonder if our taxpayer money was funding gain-of-function research at the Wuhan Institute of Virology in Wuhan, China? Well, Donald Trump was ahead of that one. We have a report here from CNN in May of 2020. They report like it's this, crazy thing. President Donald Trump contradicted a rare on-the-record statement from his own intelligence community by claiming that he has seen evidence that gives him a, quote, high degree of confidence that the novel coronavirus originated in a lab in Wuhan, China, but declined to provide details to back up his assertion. Okay? Constantly, this man is being bombarded. He's being accused of being a liar, a threat to democracy, a loon. Then we see later that year, we have the pandemic. We have this whole idea that Trump is crazy for talking about that it may have come from a lab, which it did. Later that year, 3 weeks before the presidential election, in October of 2020, the New York Post releases the Hunter Biden laptop story. Within 5 days of that story, Twitter removed the New York Post's story, the tweet of the news story. They also suspended accounts which retweeted it. Facebook also demoted it according to its hacker materials policy. This is a quote from Facebook. In many countries, including the US, if we have signals that a piece of content is false, we temporarily reduce its distribution pending review by a third-party fact checker. And then on October 19th, 2020, literally 2.5 weeks before the election, 51 ex-intelligence officials say that the Hunter Biden laptop story had all of the earmarks of Russian disinformation. So he is hit with Russia hoax, Charlottesville hoax, impeachment number one, this idea that he is a loon for saying that COVID came from a lab, which it did. Then he has the whole Hunter Biden laptop story is Russian disinformation. We also know that during that time of the 2020 election, that FBI was meeting with Twitter weekly in this scandal exposed by Barry Weiss and Michael Schellenberger called the Twitter Files, where literally members of FBI were meeting with Twitter on a weekly basis leading up to the presidential election to suppress anti-vaccine and conservative content. We know that the FBI paid Twitter $3.4 million in exchange, it appears, for what Twitter did. We know that 10 executives from the FBI went on to work at Twitter, including the former general counsel of the FBI, James Baker, who was personally responsible for Twitter removing the New York Post's Hunter Biden laptop story. We also know that in addition to big tech censorship, we had a record number of Americans, 43%, cast ballots by mail in 2020, amidst these sue and settle strategies pursued by Democrat lawyer activists such as Mark Elias, who, among other things, watered down signature requirements in states like Georgia and Pennsylvania, got election staffers who did not work in the government, such as Michael Spitzer Rubenstein in Green Bay, Wisconsin, to preside over absentee voting instructions and curing absentee ballots. We also know that there were disparities in dating requirements thanks to this sue and settle strategy in a place like Pennsylvania, where in certain counties, ballots with no or faulty signatures were accepted, whereas in other counties, they were not accepted. All of this is happening. And Donald Trump, again, is fighting for his whole 4 years. The guy's worn out. Then January 6th happens, impeachment number 2, and then 2 years after he leaves office in the beginning of 2023, we see 2 state and 2 federal indictments. We have the racketeering case in Georgia that Trump was a part of a criminal conspiracy to overturn the results of the 2020 election. We know that there was the bogus 34 felony counts in Manhattan that he allegedly violated campaign finance regulation because of misciting on his business records the payment that he made or Michael Cohen made to Stormy Daniels. We know that there was the classified documents case, which special counsel Robert Hur found that President Joe Biden had actually done the same thing, but yet President Joe Biden was not prosecuted. We had another one, a federal indictment in D.C. over a conspiracy allegedly to defraud the United States for Donald Trump's belief that the election had been stolen. All of this happens. The American people are just letting it go. And then, less than 3 months ago, Joe Biden drops out of the presidential race. Okay, we have to remember this. On July 21st, 2024, that is literally less than 2 months ago, actually, Joe Biden dropped out. And then we had the DNC 3 weeks ago where Kamala Harris ascends the ranks, having no votes. She becomes the nominee. Oh, and by the way, in addition to all of that, Donald Trump was shot on July 13th, 2024. You think the guy is over it? So no wonder he was a little bit slumpish last night. I completely support him. I continue to support him. But we, the American people, have to realize that he has been through hell. He has been through persecution, and that has had some kind of effect on him. Trump, or I was about to call you Trump, Sean, unless you have something to say.
I am an orange man, yes.
You are an orange man, yeah.
Your Uzi weighs a ton, my dear.
I don't know what that means, but thank you.
It's a rap phrase. You have a heavy gun. You just you just wrap it up. Do you need to take a breath?
No, I don't. I want to actually go through it one more time. I'm not kidding. Russiagate hoax, Charlottesville lie, impeachment number 1 with Joe Biden in Ukraine. We have the pandemic lies. We have the Hunter Biden laptop story. We have the subversion of the 2020 election because of social media influence and the sue and settle strategy. We have impeachment number 2 over January 6th. We have the four indictments. Should I add 4 things, 4 fingers here? And then we have the assassination attempt, and then we have Joe Biden resigning. Does that mean anything to anyone? It means something to me. All right, before we continue, we're going to dive into debate clips showing completely how the moderators were on the side of Kamala Harris, how there was a complete discrepancy in the way that they treated her and the president, and how the president could have stepped in and gone more on offense. But I want to tell you quickly about gold. Right now is a really good time to invest your assets in something physical amidst a lot of economic and global volatility. Economists are warning us about massive tax hikes that could hit our IRAs and 401ks hard. With inflation rising and global uncertainty, it's no wonder that central banks and many Americans are turning to gold. If you haven't thought about gold yet, now is the time, and you should trust Priority Gold to help you diversify your savings with gold and silver. Text GOLD into 1-800-405-GOLD for a free Gold Information Guide and see if you qualify for free shipping and storage. Experts agree that physical gold is one of the best ways to fortify your savings. Act now to get your portfolio working for you while the market is golden. Text GOLDEN to 1-800-405-GOLD. That's text GOLDEN to 1-800-405-GOLD. All right, let's go into the clips here.
Before we start, can I talk about two major juxtapositions that drive me crazy?
Absolutely, go ahead.
Sorry, I don't mean to look like Richard Nixon. One, they're constantly talking about the past, bringing up all these tired lies that have been debunked, and the moderators never fact-checked that,
Never.
which I thought was interesting. They fact-check Trump all the time. They never fact-check Kamala on any of these old tired lies, and they're always talking about these tired old lies in the past, but how we're going to move forward.
Yeah, exactly.
And then the other, she's always talking about how he's disparaging the American people, but they are constantly on the attack, like they have nothing substantive to say. That is their whole game, is the attack. Today, Nancy Pelosi suggested that 30% of GOP voters are racist, sexist homophobes.
Homophobes.
Homophobes. But I'm just saying, it's like, I don't know how people don't see through those lies.
Yes.
It's just constant.
Well, to that point, you know, Kamala Harris is an expert flip-flopper. She is so good at changing her messaging and her policies depending on what's popular, which is why it was such a missed opportunity for Donald Trump to come out and say, we have records here. We have 4 years of me, 4 years of her. Which one do you like better? You know, as far as fracking, here is a direct quote. She lied the whole night. She said that she does not oppose fracking and that she has never opposed fracking. Here is a direct Kamala Harris quote. There is no question I'm in favor of banning fracking. Okay? She also has supported defunding the police. Kamala Harris, for instance, encouraged people to chip in, she tweeted this, to the Minnesota Freedom Fund to post bail for those Black Lives Matter rioters who are protesting, to put in blinking quotation marks, in Minnesota. They raised $35 million. They got many people out of jail. And the rest of the money, this is reading directly from Molly Hemingway's book, Rigged, went to those accused of rape, murder, and other violent felonies. One woman got a $100,000 cash bail who was charged with stabbing a friend to death. And another man, using this leftover money that Kamala Harris helped raise, was convicted twice of rape and charged with kidnapping, assault, sexual assault, and assault, got $350,000 for his release. Okay, so nothing about that. Why didn't the moderators ask any questions about her radical left record? This was the closest thing that they got to it. Let's play clip 23.
My question to you tonight is, why did the administration wait until 6 months before the election to act? And would you have done anything differently?
That is not the clip.
Biden on this?
Let's pause. This is 23, where they're talking about how her values have not changed. If we don't have the clip, it's fine. Okay, we do not have that clip. All right, well, let's just go into these comparisons then. We know that throughout the night, the moderators, David Muir and Lindsay Davis, fact-checked, and even their fact checks were wrong, Donald Trump several times. They did not fact-check Kamala Harris once. We're going to look at some direct comparisons here, okay? Let's start with the way that these individuals were talking about January 6th, okay? It's okay. He's saying that he has the audio of 23. So David Muir asked Donald Trump if there was anything that he regretted about January 6th. Donald Trump starts to talk about that day. Let's listen to it. Clip 30.
10,000 National Guard or soldiers. They rejected me. Nancy Pelosi rejected me. It was just 2 weeks ago. Her daughter has a tape of her saying she is fully responsible for what happened. They want to get rid of that tape. It would have never happened if Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington did their jobs.
Okay, so it's true. And Nancy Pelosi is on tape, as Donald Trump had said yesterday, saying that she's responsible for January 6th. Donald Trump had offered to send in the National Guard. The mayor of Washington, D.C., and the Speaker of the House at the time, Nancy Pelosi, rejected that. Let's listen to what David Muir said as a follow-up. This is clip 31.
The question was about you as president, not about former Speaker Pelosi.
Okay, that is a ridiculous injection or intervention that he makes. Okay. How many times did Kamala Harris not answer the question? By the way, he did answer the question. He said, no, I do not have regrets about January 6th. I said that people should peacefully and patriotically march to the Capitol. I offered the National Guard to Speaker Pelosi. That is why he brought up Speaker Pelosi. But then David Muir cuts in and goes, the question was not about Speaker Pelosi. Let's compare this to Afghanistan. Okay. We have here David Muir asking Vice President Kamala Harris, quote, do you believe that you bear any responsibility in the way that that withdrawal played out? Let's listen to Kamala Harris's response. 49.
And these people.
Well, I will tell you, I agreed with President Biden's decision to pull out of Afghanistan.
Okay, so she does not answer that question, which is, quote, do you believe you bear any responsibility in the way that that withdrawal played out? David Muir does not respond in a similar way by saying, former or current vice president, the question is about you. He doesn't do the same thing that he did to Donald Trump with the Speaker Pelosi thing. He actually goes on to say, quote, I want to move on. He doesn't at all make it about her or press her about it. Trump does get something in about this Afghanistan withdrawal, which is very important. This is clip 50.
And these people did the worst withdrawal and, in my opinion, the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. And by the way, that's why Russia attacked Ukraine, because they saw how incompetent she and her boss are.
Yeah, absolutely right. And that was Donald Trump playing the role, essentially, of the moderator. Of course, he was editorializing it. Of course, he was talking about it from Donald Trump's perspective. But David Muir should have cut in and asked in question form what Donald Trump just said, to press Vice President Kamala Harris on his question, do you bear any responsibility? But we see that direct discrepancy. With January 6th, Donald Trump answers the question about his responsibility by talking about Speaker Pelosi. David Muir follows up saying the question is not about Speaker Pelosi. When Kamala Harris is asked about her responsibility with regard to Afghanistan, when she doesn't answer the question directly, there is no follow-up. Let's go on to the Charlottesville lie. No fact-checking on this. It is egregious. It is despicable that these individuals are allowed to lie to the American people, and they lied all night. The moderators and Kamala Harris, and this was one of the top ones. Clip 33.
Let's remember Charlottesville, where there was a mob of people carrying tiki torches, spewing anti-Semitic hate. And what did the president then at the time say? There were fine people on each side.
No fact check from the moderators. Again, here's the direct quote. You also had some very fine people on both sides. You had people in that group who were there to protest the taking down of, to them, a very important statue and the renaming of a park. I am not talking about the neo-Nazis and the white supremacists, white nationalists, excuse me. They should be condemned completely. Nothing from the moderators. Let's talk about abortion. Lindsay Davis asks Donald Trump a question about abortion. He goes on, he's talking about overturning Roe v. Wade, how it went back to the states. It's true. He said use some liberal states, use some conservative states. He's talking about it. Then he goes in to talking about certain states in which after the child is born, if the mother wants an abortion, the child is allowed to die. This is very rare, but it does happen in a limited number of states. Let's listen to Lindsay Davis's follow-up to Donald Trump, clip 10.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born. Madam Vice President, I want to get your response to President Trump.
She is technically right that there is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born, in the sense like you're stabbing the baby or cutting the baby's head off. But there are states where it is legal that if the woman wants an abortion in the final month, they give birth and they let the baby die. That is true. But nothing about that, right? And then Kamala Harris goes on to talk about this idea of Trump abortion bans. So we saw this fact check from Lindsay Davis with regard to the killing the baby after it is born. Then Kamala Harris starts talking about these Trump abortion bans, and there is no challenge or follow-up. This is clip 11.
Trump abortion bans that make no exception even for rape and incest.
Literally, what is she talking about? What is she talking about with these Trump abortion bans? First of all, as we've discussed on Timeless, a 6-week abortion limit is not a ban. A ban is a ban. If I ban Sean from coming to my house, he's not stepping through the front door and can only go past the front door, but not into my living room. He's not allowed in the house at all. This idea of a 6-week ban or a 15-week ban, this is ridiculous. It is not a ban. And even Trump uses this terminology sometimes. And also, there are no Trump abortion bans. Like, this is so ridiculous. And this is part of the association game that I have profiled on this show before, where we hear Muslim ban, book ban, don't say gay bill. And people have repeated this enough times that people really do believe that Donald Trump writ large banned Muslims from coming into the country. They believe that conservatives are going through and picking books written by Black or gay people and just taking them out of libraries because they're written by Black and gay people. We have people believing that there is a Florida statute which literally tells teachers to not say the word gay. It's obscene. And then when Kamala Harris talks about these Trump abortion bans, there's no follow-up from the moderator saying, Vice President Kamala Harris, what are you talking about? What is it? Donald Trump did not pass a ban on abortion. Where is the fact check follow up on that? She's talking about conservative states where there are restrictions on abortion, but that is very different than a Trump abortion ban. She continued to lie, completely unchecked by the moderators. She went on to say that Donald Trump would pass an abortion ban, which he has said many times, a federal abortion ban that is, that he would not do. This is clip 12.
And I pledge to you, when Congress passes a bill to put back in place the protections of Roe v. Wade, as President of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law. But understand, if Donald Trump were to be reelected, he will sign a national abortion ban. Understand, in his Project 2025, there would be a national abortion, a monitor that would be monitoring your pregnancies, your miscarriages.
I mean, again, completely unchecked by the moderators. It's absolutely absurd. We should go on to immigration. Or actually, you know what? Let's do the 2020 election. This one is actually such an amazing example because it's not only that there wasn't any fact checking, as we have just demonstrated, but it shows a direct bias in the way that the questions were asked by the moderators, okay? Let's listen to the way that David Muir positioned the 2020 election question. This is clip 35.
Mr. President, for 3.5 years after you lost the 2020 election, you repeatedly falsely claimed that you won, many times saying you won in a landslide.
Okay. That is pretty biased of a question. I mean, wait, can we hear the rest of it actually? I don't think we got the full one. Can we hear it again?
Mr. President, for 3.5 years after you lost the 2020 election, you repeatedly falsely claimed that you won, many times saying you won in a landslide.
Okay, yes, that is the teeing up of the question. Forgive me, I'm going to have to look at the transcript. But then he goes on to talk about this election. And he is essentially not giving any credence to the fact that there is evidence, spectacular amounts of evidence, that the election was rigged. I had just identified this in the first 20 minutes of the episode, that it was rigged by big tech companies. It was rigged by people like Mark Elias, who pursued the sue and settle strategy. I mean, what a way to position a question, you know? Yes, could we please? Thank you, Sean.
Mr. President, for 3.5 years after you lost the 2020 election, you repeatedly falsely claimed that you won, many times saying you won in a landslide. In the past couple of weeks leading up to this debate, you have said, quote, you lost by a whisker, that you, quote, didn't quite make it, that you came up a little bit short.
I said that?
Are you now acknowledging that you lost in 2020?
Pause. So he says, are you now acknowledging that you lost in 2020? Okay, fine question, perhaps. But he doesn't follow it up with any kind of credence to the very legitimate claims that the election was rigged. Again, I don't want to repeat myself too much in this episode, but you just heard me at the beginning of the episode talking about the Twitter files. This is proven that the FBI was meeting weekly with Twitter in order to suppress conservative content. We know that the FBI paid Twitter $3.4 million. We know that the FBI, this is a government agency. The former general counsel of the FBI, James Baker, went on to work at Twitter and was personally responsible for quashing the Hunter Biden laptop story. We have example after example. I mentioned Michael Spitzer Rubenstein in Green Bay, Wisconsin, who really took over election procedures in Green Bay. The Green Bay city clerk complained that she was being sidelined by Michael Spitzer Rubenstein because he was coming in essentially overseeing election procedures. She complained, quote, that she hadn't been in any discussions or emails as to what's been done with the money. And she was so frustrated that she actually quit. What happened was that Mark Zuckerberg gave $450 million to privatize election procedures. And it was funneled through this entity called the Center for Tech and Civic Life. And it was billed as COVID-19 response. Like, we need to give extra money to these state and local governments to help with election procedures because a lot of people are mailing in their ballots and we need extra people who are processing these ballots. But then we saw that it actually led to people like Michael Spitzer Rubenstein and outside entities coming in and overseeing election procedures, such as curing absentee ballots and changing absentee voting instructions, when the law stipulates that no outsider can do that. The government runs elections. Oh my God, I have so many examples of this. You have no idea. I have done an immense amount of research on this. In Wisconsin, there were 195,000 out of the 1 million mail-in voters who claimed that they were indefinitely confined because the city clerks of many of these cities in Wisconsin encouraged voters, because of COVID-19, to say that they were indefinitely confined. And when you claim that as part of your voting, you do not have to show an ID to vote. We know, I said in Pennsylvania, that there were these discrepancies with the way that signature requirements were processed. We know that at the State Farm Arena in Atlanta, Georgia, that there was this example, these videos of the Republican pollsters being sent home because they were done counting that day. And then there are people pulling out these containers of ballots and running them through the machines. I mean, David Muir is acting like there is absolutely no credence at all to the American people's concerns that the 2020 election was rigged. Instead, he's just saying, like, you crazy man, you say these things, and do you finally acknowledge that you lost? That is not a journalist. 50% of the country rightfully believes that the election was at the very least rigged. You are not, even if you personally, David Muir, do not believe that, you're not representing the belief and the skepticism of the American people on this most important issue. It's absurd. So we have that. We have the election. We talked about David Muir. Trump responds. Yeah, let's go on, actually. This is so important because even with the cases, the Trump campaign brought forth many cases which were dismissed, as Donald Trump had talked about. And we see that David Muir doesn't acknowledge this. It's a fight between Donald Trump and David Muir. This is clip 37.
We should just point out here as clarification, and you know this, you and your allies, 60 cases in front of many judges, many of them
no
Republican.
Judge looked at it
and said
they
there was
said
no
we didn't have
widespread
standing.
fraud.
I mean, that's literally true. And David Muir doesn't acknowledge that at all. So it's not only that David Muir isn't fact-checking Kamala Harris. It's not only that David Muir isn't pressing Kamala Harris, but he's actively participating in this misinformation, by not acknowledging, he didn't overtly lie, but he's not acknowledging that the cases were dismissed. And he is not acknowledging the huge aforementioned pieces of evidence that the 2020 election was rigged. That is manipulation by omission. Let me see. Oh my gosh. Yes, we have to talk about this. It was actually painful to have to winnow down the number of clips, but I think we'll end on this one. We see we saw last night, time and time again, that Kamala Harris, one of her main strategies was that she actively gaslit the American people. And she would claim these things, which is a real Saul Alinsky strategy. Saul Alinsky said, accuse your opponent of doing what you're doing in order to inculcate confusion. It's a brilliant mastery of debate strategy, really. And that's why I say, and I hate to say it, that Kamala Harris did win the debate because she did things like this that were certainly unchecked by the moderators. And in my opinion, not effectively checked by former President Donald Trump. This is about a minute long, but we're going to bear with it. It's about immigration, which is one of the most important issues of this election. We've seen a radical transformation in immigration policy under the Biden-Harris administration. We know that voters, alongside the economy, rate immigration as one of their top issues. And so David Muir asks the border czar, Kamala Harris, about immigration. She does not answer the question. He not only does not press her on that, but then she totally goes off and starts gaslighting the American people about fentanyl and about Donald Trump running on an issue instead of solving it. And in my opinion, Donald Trump didn't cut in and call her out for that blatant gaslighting. And David Muir did not bring it back to the question, which was about her policy. Let's listen to this exchange. Oh, number. Yes, that's important. This is 17, full clip.
But my question to you tonight is, why did the administration wait until 6 months before the election to act? And would you have done anything differently from President Biden on this?
So I'm the only person on this stage who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations for the trafficking of guns, drugs, and human beings. And let me say that the United States Congress, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Senate, came up with a border security bill which I supported. And that bill would have put 1,500 more border agents on the border to help those folks who are working there right now overtime trying to do their job. It would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States. I know there are so many families watching tonight who have been personally affected by the surge of fentanyl in our country. That bill would have put more resources to allow us to prosecute transnational criminal organizations for trafficking in guns, drugs, and human beings. But you know what happened to that bill? Donald Trump got on the phone, called up some folks in Congress, and said, kill the bill. And you know why? Because he'd prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And understand, this comes at a time where the people of our country actually need a leader who engages in solutions, who actually addresses the problems at hand. But what we have in the former president is someone who would prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And I'll tell you something, he's going to talk about immigration a lot tonight, even when it's not the subject that is being raised. And I'm going to actually do something really unusual, and I'm going to invite you to attend one of Donald Trump's rallies, because it's a really interesting thing to watch. You will see during the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter. He will talk about windmills cause cancer. And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom.
Okay. So much to unpack there. But this whole idea of running on a problem instead of fixing a problem, again, brilliant strategy from Kamala Harris, complete inversion. Donald Trump, that is when he should have cut in and he should have said, we have 4 years of me and we have 4 years of you. There's been only one other time in history with Grover Cleveland where this has happened. We have 4 years of my record and 4 years of your record. I solved problems. I facilitated the Abraham Accords. We had border control under my presidency. I gave support to law enforcement and police. I funded HBCUs. I drone striked Qasem Soleimani, the Iranian general. I dropped the mother of all bombs on Afghanistan. I mean, you can go on and on and on. He should go and talk about his policies, and especially with regard to immigration. And she just really owns this whole thing that she's doing as a way to sort of signal to the American people, people who aren't as well versed in issues, they're going to be like, wow, she is tough. She's doing she's being so out in the open with what people are accusing her of doing, but she's really going on offense here. It gives her, for those of us who know she's lying, we know she's lying, but it gives her a kind of credibility by going on offense. This is where Trump should have been on offense. Trump was talking way too much about himself. He should have hammered her and gone, really? You're telling me that I run on problems instead of solve problems? His final debate closing statement was what he should have inserted there, and what he should have inserted all night. Should have said, you're talking all the time about doing this and doing that. And why haven't you done it? Why haven't you done it? You are a common runner on problems. You have done nothing besides maintain the leftist status quo during your time in office. I actually changed things. Yes. I want to call you Trump. I keep feeling the need.
No, so that clip you just played was also the pivotal moment where you could see Trump's performance turn.
Exactly.
He went into angry mode. And even though he made good points after that moment, he came across as angry when he was delivering them. And that's why people perceive that she won, because she smiled while she was lying instead of getting angry like Trump did. But he was fed up.
But he was fed up.
He went over the edge.
But he should not have done this. He took the bait and he was undisciplined. I hate to say it. I support the man. She was lying the whole night. He was right on the issues. I mean, my gosh, it was very clear to me it should be clear to everyone who the president should be. But then, so this answer is so important. She starts talking about the border bill. She does not answer the question as to why, for 3.5 years, her administration did nothing besides open the border. The head of Homeland Security, Alejandro Mayorkas, was actually impeached because of his negligence. She does not answer that question. She goes into this border bill, which they only concocted right before the election so as to allege that they have done something. Then she goes into fentanyl, which is so insulting. These fentanyl poisonings are happening because of her administration's border crossings. She owns the issue. Like, fentanyl is such an important thing. And, we have to take care of this from people like him. This is personal. Trump should have been all over that. He should have been all over the running on a problem instead of fixing the problem thing. But then, as Sean indicated, she's been coached on this. She totally pivots from the immigration subject. She starts talking about Donald Trump's rallies. Like, it literally has nothing to do with the immigration policy. One of her advisors said to her, hey, if you're ever in a bind, like if they ever ask you about some of your disasters, start talking about it for a little bit and then pivot to the rally. That was the weapon in her back pocket that she was waiting for, that some aide put there for a moment when she did not want the heat on her and she wanted to put it back to him. So she starts talking about the fictional characters and people walking out. And instead of laying up the easiest issue of any president in the history of American elections, this immigration issue, he takes the bait that the aide planted for her in a moment of crisis. This is clip 18.
And I will tell you, the one thing you will not hear him talk about is you. You will not hear him talk about your needs, your dreams, and your desires.
Forgive me.
And I'll
clip
tell you,
19.
I believe you deserve a president who actually...
We have the biggest rallies, the most incredible rallies in the history of politics. That's because people want to take their country back. Our country is being lost. We're a failing nation. And it happened 3.5 years ago.
It's like, don't talk about that. And by the way, that clip before then, he talks about the rallies even more. He goes, she said people start leaving. People don't go to her rallies. There's no reason to go. And the people that don't go, she's bussing them in and paying for them to be here and then showing them in a different light. So she can't talk about that. People don't leave my rallies. We have the biggest rallies, the most incredible rallies in the history of politics. It's like, stop. You literally are allowing her to do this. So in summary, we know that it was rigged. We've seen the evidence here. It was 3 against 1. There's no question. There's also no question that Donald Trump, between Charlottesville, Russia hoax, impeachment number 1, impeachment number 2, Hunter Biden laptop story, classified document indictment, criminal racketeering indictment, the hush money, which is not true, but that's what they call it, indictment. We know that this man has been through hell. We know he's over it. And I have a lot of sympathy for that. And I'm very, very proud to vote for him. But if he does another debate, he has got to be on offense. And he has got to be aware of these tricks that are so easy that this incompetent person is going to pull out to switch the conversation totally away from the issues at hand. He has got to be more shrewd than that. All right, we're going to end by hearing from Sean.
No. I think you should do your sponsorships, and then I will bring my 2 points that I've thought of while you were talking.
Okay, excellent. Well, I do want to talk to you about these two things that are very important. We have mentioned gold. I want to talk about gold one more time because it's an economically volatile time. If a certain candidate wins, it'll probably be even more of an economically volatile time. That's why right now it is a good time to invest in gold. With inflation rising and massive tax hikes that could hit our IRAs and 401ks hard, it's no wonder that central banks and many Americans are turning to gold. If you haven't thought about it yet, now is the time, and you should consider trusting Priority Gold to help you diversify your savings with gold and silver. Text GOLDEN to 1-800-405-GOLD for a free gold information guide and see if you qualify for free shipping and storage. Act now to get your portfolio working for you while the market is golden. Text GOLDEN to 1-800-405-GOLD. That's text GOLDEN to 1-800-405-GOLD to learn more. And in addition to investing in gold, you should also invest in your sleep and in your showers and in your kitchen messes and in your feet by buying several MyPillow products, many of which I own and use. Right now, you can get the queen size premium MyPillow for only $19.98. You can get their 6-piece kitchen or bath towel sets for only $25, their brand new mattress topper for as low as $69.98, and the famous MyPillow bed sheets for as low as $25, and so much more. As I mentioned, you can get their premium queen size MyPillow for the lowest discount ever, $19.98. That pillow is made with a patented adjustable fill that adjusts to your individual needs regardless of your sleep position. I know it because I sleep on it. It helps keep your neck aligned, and it holds your shape all night long so that you can get your proper sleep. These are the lowest prices ever. Don't delay. Order today. Use the promo code Hartman at checkout. Call 1-800-566-6745. All right, Sean, let's hear your final points.
All right. So I agree with you. There's a term in sports called hometown refs.
Yeah.
And that's where the home team gets all the calls and the away team doesn't get any calls. They don't see it. And I think that's what happened last night in the debate. All the fact-checking of Donald, none of the fact-checking of Kamala. I agree with you. He's tired. He has to endure. I think the facts, for the most part, are on his side. And he's got to dig deep and do something I haven't seen him do thus far, and that's be calm and deliver the facts and not take the cookie when she puts it out there.
That's right.
And then point number 2, you were talking earlier about bans that were mentioned last night. And
yes.
There were 2 bans you didn't bring up. One is the Taliban, and the other is...
that was another bait and switch.
Yeah, and the other is Viktor Orban.
Wow, Sean, I'm very impressed with your turn of phrase. Yes. I mean, we can certainly discuss those, but I just want to say one more time, this is so easy, and I really want him in the next debate to focus on 5 things: economy, wars, immigration, law enforcement, and DEI. Next debate, if this man doesn't come out and make his first question about, hey, Kamala Harris, do you support the genital mutilation of children? Do you support federal funding going to this? Can you talk about your administration's overhaul of Title IX, which stipulates that your gender identity is what makes you a woman? I want him to be on offense talking about those things. It is such a layup. And so with respect to him and with sympathy for him, I do think that Kamala won that debate last night. It was padded. She had help, but she did win the debate. Now, winning a debate is different than being the president. When you're the president, you can't have, 50 advisors with you in a hotel room for 5 days before you meet with Xi Jinping or Putin. Being a good debater is very different than being a good president, but we got to come in with eyes wide open about how rigged it is and her strategies. And next time, I think Donald Trump has to do better. On that note, thank you so much for being with me. I'm seeing in the chat that people are asking for my email, which is julie@julie-hartman.com. I love hearing from you, especially if you disagree with me. Please do let me know. And I will see you next Monday live at 1 o'clock Pacific, 4 o'clock Eastern here on Timeless. And be sure to check out Dennis and Julie at that time this Sunday. Be well, everyone. Take care.